and welcome to 10-Minute On-Demand Webinar. My name is Chris Matatal, and today we're going to look at the serious topic of humor in your teaching. Now, the topic of humor in education has been around for centuries, and research on the topic has been conducted for decades. Today, a large body of research exists on its potential benefits and potential pitfalls. Now, in this webinar, I'm referring to what's known as humorous attempts. That is, when a teacher deliberately plans on using humor in the classroom. I'm not saying it is funny or it is humorous, but it was a humorous attempt. And any of you who are purveyors of dad jokes know exactly what I'm talking about. An attempt to be humorous. This is also different from incidental or spontaneous humor that's unplanned and is often reactionary. And I'll touch on that a bit too, but I'm primarily concerned today with the act of inserting humorous attempts into your teaching. We're talking here about stories, puns, illustrations, cartoons, jokes, riddles, gestures, facial expressions, impersonations when you read, props, and so on. So what are some of the potential benefits and potential pitfalls of using humor in your classroom? First, research has shown that teachers who engage in humor tend to be more approachable and perceived by students as more approachable outside of class. And as counterintuitive as it may seem, students were more likely to discuss their serious needs and their problems with those teachers. Why? Because they were perceived as more approachable. Humor can convey warmth and closeness and positivity. Human beings seem to like to be around people who make them laugh and are easy to be around. And psychologically, we know that humor contributes to individuals' higher subjective well-being. I recently read a statement that said, "Positive humor leads to positive health." When humor is used appropriately and is relevant, students reported higher positive evaluations and support for the teacher. Now, the flip side of that statement is, of course, when teachers use humor that's not appropriate or was irrelevant, distracting, and involved put-downs or insults or made fun of others or was used too often, the reported evaluation and support of those teachers was low. And a cautionary note here, too, to our humorous friends who have that amazing ability to be funny any moment of the day and tend to use a wider range or have a greater repertoire of humorous ideas and inclinations. You, my friend, need to be extra careful. Researchers who study humor have found that these individuals are also more prone to engage in inappropriate humor. Their intelligent, quick wit can be reactionary, and their use of satire, sarcasm, and innuendos can be misunderstood and sometimes can be inappropriate. So be careful, funny people. Second, researchers report that appropriate use of humor in the classroom contributes to a positive learning environment that you are so diligently building. So punctuating your teaching with some humor can make the curriculum more enjoyable, and students like being in a class where material provides emotional pleasure. Enhancing the learning environment with a little levity also provides tension relief and can even alleviate a bit of anxiety students may be experiencing. This has also been demonstrated on quizzes, exams, and assignments. When the teacher utilizes humor in test questions and assignment descriptions, for example, there seems to be a positive emotional effect on the student's engagement during the work. During exams, students have relaxed a bit and their stress has been reduced. And some researchers suggest that the reduction in anxiety leads to better performance on the test. Now, this research appears to be mostly anecdotal. But still, students have reported that it made the assignment or the exam a little bit more bearable, and it can be hypothesized it freed up their cognitive resources away from worry and away from stress to be applied to solving the assignment or the test. Third, there seems to be cognitive benefits to using humor in your teaching. Well, how? Humor causes a type of incongruence in the brain. In other words, your brain hears a joke or a pun or some form of funny wordplay, or views a humorous depiction or something, and since it's not straightforward or the meaning is not immediately evident or explicit, the brain takes notice. It kind of leans in, so to speak. The brain loves novelty, pays attention to or awakens to this incongruence. And your brain also gains satisfaction in solving this incongruence. So researchers suggest that the use of humor serves to awaken the brain to pay attention. And humor can also hold attention. Humor can serve to alert the brain that something needs our concentration, and we assign cognitive resources to what we see or hear. Now, I think a personal story here is appropriate to illustrate. I used to teach in a maximum security youth prison, and many of my students said to me that they hated school. Now, as I've said in other places, students don't hate math, or students don't hate writing, or English, or school for that matter. They hate how it makes them feel. I have witnessed dozens of times students who normally would never engage in class material suddenly perk up when humor was injected into the class lesson or the assignment. Can I give you an example? It actually started with this very photo. I saw a picture caption for this photo that read, "How to tell if your ass is too small." I laughed. That was a great caption. I thought, now, would my students find that funny? Would that caption make them want to write something? And so began the journey of using thought-provoking images or funny images to get them to write. It started with enjoyable caption writing for interesting pictures, and then having them state the points of view of characters within the funny pictures, and then stories related to the funny pictures, and so on. It was an enjoyable activity that camouflaged some serious cognitive development that was happening in my students. They were learning without even knowing it, and they enjoyed learning, even though writing is difficult. Fourth and finally, experiments have repeatedly demonstrated that humorous information is recalled more easily than non-humorous information. However, humor must be used relevantly and appropriately so that the content that you want students to remember isn't lost on the funny stuff. For instance, superfluous humor can be distracting and confusing, and you don't want students remembering the humor but missing the objective of the class altogether. That defeats your purpose. Relevant humor can make information more memorable. Irrelevant humor can distract from what you want students to remember. The point is, if humor does not enhance the objective, don't use it. If you feel the humor could aid in remembering the content, then use it. Let me finish up with some quick advice on using humor in your classroom. Number one, examine your goal or the purpose for using humor. Does it help children learn and add to a positive learning environment? Number two, is it appropriate and sensitive towards students in your class? Know your students, their cultures, their understanding, their backgrounds, and so on. You don't want student confusion or offense. And number three, be yourself. I admire the wise use of humor, and I know several teachers who are really good at it. It's easy to admire teachers like that and want to try to inject humor into your classroom, but I would say it's more important to be true to who you are and to strengthen your current strengths. However, if you do want to use some humor in your teaching, in your classroom, in your illustrations and so on, and you don't feel you're very good at it, try to utilize material that's already available and start small with maybe one funny illustration or story or fun fact that produces a positive effect in your students. Now, you'll find more about this topic, including the references that I've used for this, in my Teaching Approaches tab on my website, goodteaching.ca. And as always, if you have any comments or questions or stories that you'd like to share with me, please feel free to go to my website, find my contact information, and send me an email. I would love to hear from you. I hope you have a great day.